The early temples of Tamil Nadu were not very large. The emphasis was on a very personal devotion to the divine. In the beginning of the 11th century, a dramatic change occurred. In the year 1010, King Rajaraja Chola completed the Brhadisvara Temple at Thanjavur. It was the tallest and largest temple which had ever been made in India. It was 5 times the size of previous Chola temples.
The Brihadisvara Temple, as I mentioned before, is one of the greatest masterpieces we have of Hindu religious architecture anywhere in the country. In 2010, it celebrated its 1000th year commemoration of the consecration of the monument. But it does represent one of the real points of architectural development that is crucial to understanding what happened in Tamil Nadu. It is a temple that has been elongated, vertically, I would say, extended, with double walls and up to 13 stories in a pyramid that rises absolutely flawlessly all the way to the summit.
Rajaraja gave generous endowments of land and finances to run the large administration of the temple. Around the temple run thousands of feet of inscriptions, giving numerous details about the making of the temple and the functioning of the temple. We learn, for instance, that there were 400 dancers who were brought from various places. There was a colony of dancers which was made. There were hundreds of musicians here and so many people who participated in the grand and active life of this temple.
The temple is of importance historically because it is covered with inscriptions. The basement has this enormous amount of text in ancient Tamil script. When this was translated and then studied by scholars throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, we discovered all sorts of things about the temple. We learned all about the gifts that Rajaraja, his queens and his ministers and his military officers gave to the temple. We learned of his military exploits, the loot from which helped to pay for the temple. We learned who was employed by the temple, all the dancing girls, where they came from, what their specialties were, how much they were paid, all the different offerings that we gave to the temple on a daily basis, a weekly basis, whatever, how many cows were required to provide the milk, etc., etc. So scholars working on political, religious and economic history of the Cholas found this information absolutely invaluable. And when published, it took about 300 to 400 pages of a great volume of South Indian inscriptions. So this is an enormous document about the history of the monument and its place within the Chola state.
These steps take one up to an inner ambulatory which runs around the Garbhagriha, the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. The inner and outer walls of this ambulatory have only 5 feet of space between them, and they have paintings on them which go up to a height of 20 feet. So these large paintings really impress you because you have to stand close to them and look up at the grand figures. For indeed, the purpose of these paintings was to impress you with the greatness of Shiva. These fine murals were made in the end of the 10th century or the beginning of the 11th century. These are among the earliest surviving paintings on Hindu themes anywhere in the subcontinent.
They're extremely difficult to see because they're very high and there's almost no light and no space. And until recently, they were really not at all well photographed, so we didn't have much of an idea of their extent. But now they have been properly cleaned, they've been properly photographed, and we are beginning to understand what they are. In my opinion, the original layering is from the foundation of the temple in the early 11th century. In the 16th, 17th century, they were partly covered by another layer. And it's when this later upper layer was scraped off or tended to fall off, then came the 11th century Chola murals. They were only discovered, you know, in about 1935. Before that, we had no idea of them at all.
The Shiva temple at Chidambaram is where the Lord is believed to have performed his cosmic dance as Nataraja. It is one of the most revered temples of Tamil Nadu. The great Tamil saints, whose hymns comprise the Tevaram, write of their raptures upon seeing the dance of Shiva here. The earliest parts of the temple belong to Chola times. The Cholas made the Nataraja their family deity, and several kings had their coronations here.
Chidambaram is a very different place altogether. Chidambaram has an ancient religious tradition to do with the legend of the dance of Shiva. This is the place where this legend is believed to have taken place. And the icon, the image of Shiva dancing within that circle of flame, that means Chidambaram. So the Nataraja icon that is so famous, especially from bronzes, is to do with the place Chidambaram. And the hut in which this competition took place is still there. According to legend, this took place in a sort of forest, in a little sort of hut in the forest. And if you go into the great temple at Chidambaram, you will arrive eventually at a hut-like sanctuary, built of wood, covered in not terracotta tiles, but gilded metallic tiles.
Chidambaram is important because the rituals are of a continuing form and are still dictated by the Dikshatars. The Dikshatars are very interesting because they are supposed to have walked down from Banaras to Chidambaram and set up this temple. Even the rituals are very different from the rituals of other temples.
The great Brhadisvara and Chidambaram temples mark a period of regal grandeur in the temples of Tamil Nadu. They also display the development of a flourishing culture which continues in the state till today. Traditions passed on over the centuries are an essential part of the lives of the people of Tamil Nadu.